War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live. This is a discussion of what's going on in the Auburn news spectrum. Anything that's orange and blue, we talk about it here. Obviously, always very heavy on the sports side of things. But if you want to talk about it, if you want to ask a question, it is fair game here on these live streams. Speaking of live, we are broadcasting currently on YouTube right here in front of me. So thank you for joining us if you're on YouTube. But we also, every once in a while, let the social media folks join in on the fun as well. Today we've got Facebook going up here to my left, so you might see me popping up here every once in a while to pay attention to comments and questions right there as well. Always want to recommend that social media people come over to YouTube for the better experience, but you're welcome to use it over there. And we'll try our best to keep interacting with you over there on that edition. So a couple of things we always want to cover at the start of this. Actually, I just thought of this one thing that I wanted to start doing, and I think it'd be fun for us to do this, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. Today's topic that we're going to be talking about mainly, and obviously we can talk about anything, is Auburn's recruit class for 2021. We just kind of walk down it and look at it fully and kind of talk about what we think about it overall, what you guys' thoughts on it, players that stick out to you, maybe some dark horses in terms of people that might do really well. You know, the best stories are always the ones where one surprises you and becomes a 5-star recruit, even though they might have been a 3-star recruit. So we'll talk about we'll talk about that a little bit, but anything is fair game that you might want to bounce around in between. So here's what I'd like to do, and we've got a good crowd assembling here already. You know, a lot of like YouTube live streamers will do this at the start off, especially when they do their little pre-show announcements. I want to start us off with a fun little tradition we might be able to start. At the start of the broadcast, you know, the Auburn family is very expansive and is huge. I'd love to know where you guys are actually calling or listening in from or watching from more specifically. So right now, Auburn family call outs. I want you to type in your city and your state, or if you're international, which I know we have some, your country. Let us know where you are right now in the chat window and get your commenting fingers ready to go as we go through our beginning of the show announcements. And these are the things that we want to share with you at the start. Obviously, we want you to help support this podcast network if you feel like you can do that. The best way you can do that is by listening to the podcast themselves. Really easy to do. It's on Apple Podcasts. And I'm going to put the link for you guys there in the window as soon as I can get it to pull up for me. And it's coming up there. But also what I'm actually going to share today is not just the Apple Podcast link, but the other one as well. So this is the Apple Podcast link right here in the comments right now. Go there and check it out. We have a new edition of Auburn Roots with Jen. I'm going to try to pronounce her name. Romerhauser. Oh, my goodness. It's so hard to say. Where she tells her Auburn story, and it is a good one. She is actually one of the first ones to connect with Dee Ford. And many of you know that story with Miss Dee Ford. She was the first one we ever interviewed on Auburn Roots. So go check all that good stuff out there if you haven't done so already. Also, I'll bring it back up over time. If you haven't thought about joining or at least checking out the E2C Network Booster Club, we've got a lot of you signing up for that recently, and we really appreciate it. For as little as $1 a month, the link is in the chat window right now. You can sign up and help support the content that we do here. And there are some other options there for you to consider as well. So that's the pre-show announcements that I hope you'll check out. Let me see where everybody's hailing from. Everybody right now. Atlanta area, Buford, Opelika, Columbus, near Charlotte. Awesome. So, and I see a couple of familiar faces here on Facebook as well. So Montgomery area as well. So we're pretty much North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, some pretty traditional Auburn grounds that we'll see if we get anybody else. I want to share where they're from as we go along. Jefferson, Iowa. That's probably the winner of the day. But good to see that you are here joining us, even from far out there in the cold, snowy hills of Iowa, or plains of Iowa. All right, let me say hello to a couple of you. Darius Whitlow says, we got Jarquez Hunter. Do we have him? I don't think it's the case yet. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's happened just yet. Neil says, so this is basically Gus's recruiting class. So are you referring to that as in you're blaming Gus for it, or are you saying that it's the same as his ones? Because his ones were a lot better typically than this. I don't think you can blame Gus either. And on the here, let me go ahead and say this right now. Literally, as I'm about to go on this live stream, you know, I pulled up a list, and you can probably think of the one I'm using right here of our recruiting class just to reference. And one of the articles, when you type it into Google, is Auburn's coach is already falling behind. Has already fallen behind. And I'm like, has he though? I mean, because he really had nothing much to work with. He had a really bad situation. So I think, I remember media is all about getting people to click, to listen, to all that kind of stuff. So pulling back the curtain here, it's all about getting you to do something besides just read the headline. So that's what they want you to think, is get you fired up about that, so you'll click and read further. And they're probably not actually saying that he's behind. I mean, in a way, he kind of is, but it's not as bad as that sounds. Running back room looks better now. So did Jerquez actually join us? I'm not sure about that. Hal Presley is the dark horse, reminds me of Seth. That might be a good one right there. Seth was highly regarded when he came in, but I don't think he was the ceiling. I don't think people expected to be so high for him before he got here. Let's see. Let me go way down here. Swamped with snow, and Hawkeye and Cyclone fans still hear crap about Chiswick here. Oh, man. I bet they have some very sour feelings toward him. By the way, thank y'all so much for those of you that have already hit the like button. It does help the stream out and helps other people find it as well. So thank you so much. Same thing on social media as well. According to AL.com, which you need to take with a grain of salt always, Hunter has signed. Okay. Can't fall behind when he was hired so late. I agree with that, Spooky Buffalo. I think that's a fair assessment there. No, I'm not blaming. It's just weird that Gus usually had a top 20 recruiting class even before he was fired. The class didn't look good. So the class didn't look good because of several circumstances, because of COVID-19, and I get it that everybody else was going through COVID-19 as well. But this is also, I think people forget this. Recruits pay attention to what you're saying on social media. So not the entire, because I still believe in my heart of hearts and just looking and talking to people that it was 60-40 who were still supporting Gus, the quiet ones. It's always the more vocal ones that seem like they're the majority because of the more vocal ones. The vocal social media people that post things, they're the ones that kind of built this narrative that kind of broke down the trust, the belief, and the stability of the program, and then affected the recruiting as well. Now, I'm not taking away responsibility from the coaching staff and stuff like that, but the point still stands that it's hard to make that case with COVID-19 on top of it. When your team is not doing as well as expected, it all compounds upon itself. So, there you go. War Productions has brought up a great point, and I saw this before we went live here, that Grant Lloyd, last year's Bowling Green transfer, is using a free year of eligibility, along with Tyrone Truesdale. So 2 key positions where depth is needed right now. We needed Grant Lloyd there to back up Demetrius Davis, and, well, I'm saying back up Demetrius Davis because I think we're all assuming in the very talented kid that him coming in the recruiting class, he's going to be the backup eventually to Bo Nix, if not pushing for the starting job. I don't think he'll get it. I know a lot of you want that, but I think he'll push for it, which is a good thing. But Grant Lloyd will be needed for depth purposes at this point. And then Tyrone Truesdale as well. I'm not saying Coach Harsin is behind. No, I don't think he's behind either. I think we're probably on the same page on that. We will be top 20 once Tennessee gets their stuff together. Everybody's still on that. What's the kid's name? Dylan bandwagon. I'm all for him being there, but I haven't seen much. If it wasn't for Tennessee being involved with this, I probably would be a little bit more optimistic about it, because they can't much less run a program as opposed to what they're doing to recruits. Darius, I forgot Lloyd was there too, because I think that's a good thing, right? You want the backup to not be a factor. And I know that sounds harsh, because that means your starter and your real backup are getting the job done. And I think Grant Lloyd was that. I think Cord Sandberg was the official backup last year. This class shouldn't be pinned on Harsin. He came in at the worst time possible. Next year will be telling. I agree completely, Josh. This should not be pinned on him whatsoever. And I don't necessarily see this as a failure. I see this as a stepping stone. I was trying to think of a nice way to say it. It was bad before he was fired. I think Harsin did a good job by getting us to 30. And if they free up Dylan Brooks, we move it. Man, everybody is like on that Dylan Brooks bandwagon. I'm just having a hard time getting on it, though. Yeah, we already talked about the Tyrant Truesdale. Joe, what's going on, my man? By the way, several of you fellow E2C Network Booster Club members are here. I appreciate y'all's support a lot. It means the world to me. I mean that so much. Buffalo. Sorry, I didn't know I got that wrong there. And we talked about this last stream too, that Devin Barrett's coming back to give some running back depth. So we're starting to see some of these area of concerns really start to kind of fix themselves in terms of depth issues. The football facility just got final approval, Kelsey says. We needed this big time. We've needed the football facility long before this. And it has been held from Gus Malzahn, but the players, because boosters would not get behind this until they got what they wanted, which was the firing of Coach Malzahn. And that's just despicable. You basically made your football program suffer in recruiting so you get your way. And that's just, I'm sorry, that's bad. That's just real bad. But it's done. It's over with. I'm happy we have it now. Hopefully we won't have to be able to play those games again. Truesdale's coming back. Yes, he is. There's an article about Bo transferring. Any insight? First I've heard of it, John. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you know, in a era where anything can happen, I wouldn't say that's, you know, I would not say there isn't any chance for that. If that's a double negative, I don't know. There's always a chance, but I don't have much insight on that because that's the first I'm hearing of as well. You know, I've heard people say Bo should transfer, Bo will transfer, all that kind of stuff. You don't go out and compete in a bowl game for the new head coach and try to show what kind of grit and determination you have if you're not planning on being there. Now, of course, things can change since the bowl game, but I think so here's what I always try to remind everybody. And I've already kind of said it once this live stream. Pay attention to when these articles and things with these dasting revelations and stuff are posted. If you notice yesterday, a lot of the sites were running like 50% off and stuff, and I think those sales continue today. They want you to read the stuff so you'll consider signing up for their services and stuff like that. So sometimes they take a little nugget or a little rumor and build it up into something that it really isn't. And I always subscribe to the theory that where there's smoke, there's fire. But to what degree? I would say the degree is very low at this point. We should go recruit by recruit and discuss. That is exactly what we're going to play. I'm just trying to catch up on everybody's comments, and we're going to do that. I think that's a great point, though. What if Loy is the starter? Huh? I hope not. I hope not. That means we're in a really bad situation. No offense to Grant Loy, but I think we'd be in a bad situation if that was the thing. They'll keep playing the games because yes, the boosters will do that. If it happens Saturday down south, it's going to go crazy. Can anyone send me a copy of that NCAA 14 video game for Xbox? I have it, I think. You're not getting it, but I think it's right here somewhere. There it is. NCAA 14. I was actually playing this at the start of the season, trying to play out the season and stuff like that. So, NCAA 14. I'm ready for the new one. We need to talk about that at some point. Oh, so many things are popping in my head. All right, let's get into what we kind of got here today to talk about. And as we get into this, please do remember, if you haven't, smash that like button. All right, I think there's no question that there are two headliners for this recruiting class. Do you all, and you can all share with me if you disagree or anything like that. But I'm going to make this statement. Tell me if you agree. The two headliners are Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle, and Demetrius Davis, the quarterback. So that's and it's always good to look at it that way. Who's your offensive and defensive headliner? It kind of gives you a perspective of where the class sits at. So Demetrius Davis comes from Texas. It's nice to start building those Texas roots because there's a lot of talent out there. And I'm looking at 24/7 right now in their recruiting service. 4-star, let's see, 5 foot, 10.5 height. I didn't know it was a 10.5. 200 for Demetrius Davis. And then Lee Hunter is 6'5", 292 pounds. Big boy. It's going to be a defensive tackle for us. What are your thoughts about those two? What's going on, Jeremiah? Good to see you. Everyone is hyping up Matt Carroll, even though he's the guy who threw 5+ picks in 2 different games. You know, it's easy to get hyped up in an offense like a Lane Kiffin or a Mike Leach, but you can see how long that lasts. It doesn't last very long. I sold my NCAA 64 game and recently regret it every day. Yeah. I mean, you're hopefully going to be getting a new one soon, right? But yeah. All right. Looks like most people agree that the headliners are Demetrius Davis and Lee Hunter. Any thoughts on the two of those guys that really stand out to you? What does hottie toddy even mean? I had it explained to me, and I don't know if you actually know if you're just being funny, but it's a reference to a alcoholic drink. Why that's their battle cry or their cheer, I don't know. I mean, I know why, but like why they chose. It's the same thing as like Arkansas saying, woo, pig, suey. Don't get it. And they feel the same way towards us, but it's just weird. 4-star running back and 3-star running back signed today. Am I missing that, Jeremiah? I've had a very busy morning. This is why we're actually streaming way later than we typically do. So I may have missed that today. Gaston is going to be a game changer. Just watch. He does have the feel, Joe, that he's one of those dark horses. So I think he would be a good pick for that. It was a nice flip for Auburn from South Carolina. Here's the Dylan Brooks bandwagon here. No, but he's talking about his teammate Tay Meadows. Let's see. Davis is small, built like a running back, if you're talking about Demetrius Davis. Slim Dusty. Lee Hunter seems like a potentially could be a special in the future. So you always want to find a linchpin for the offensive and the defensive line to build around. We did that with Montravius Adams. We did that with Derek Brown. We kind of did that with Big Cat this year, although he didn't kind of live up to the potential as much. But I think Lee has that potential, and I don't think that you'll necessarily see it fully realized this year. But the next year, I think, is when it really he'll surprise some people this year. I think next year, the next season, Lee's going to be one of the leaders on the team, especially defensively. The Ole Miss Akbar Land Sharks love to drink. Yes, they do. They are big into the drinking things. Why is an alcoholic drink their battle cry? Have you been to Mississippi? I have been several times. Most of the times it's driving through that and not stopping. But yeah. I think Joko Willis. I think he'll be a productive getting pressure on the quarterback. He's someone that kind of stands out to me as well. Lee Hunter was a 5-star until he committed to Auburn. Coincidence? I think not 100%. I'm sorry, I know when we say things like that, obviously it sounds conspiratorial and we're just going off of coincidence. But at what point does it not become a coincidence? I mean, I'm serious. It's happened time and time again that we've seen a 5-star commit to Auburn and then suddenly they're a 4-star. Again, stars don't matter. It's just annoying to see it happen. So at some point, statistics prove it's not a coincidence. Same with Tank as well. And you can see he clearly is a 5-star. I mean, one site already said that he's the best running back coming back in all of NCAA football. 5 stars become 3 and 4 stars when they commit to Auburn. It is definitely frustrating. So is it official? Did Jaquez Hunter commit this morning? I am behind on that. Is that official? Yes or no? Jeremiah and Joe, since y'all are talking about 3-star. Good depth to have regardless of how many stars he has. Come on, the media and NCAA hates Auburn. 2000 PFF is the one that said that. Yes. Okay. Yes. So that is official. Well, great to have him on board, and I just wanted to make sure I was talking about that from a correct standpoint there. And he could have been one of those commits that was like silent, that really wasn't announced, and they were trying to make sure they get it all lined up properly. Maybe he was going to decommit or something like that, or was thinking about it, and they kind of convinced him not to. All right, let me bring up another one. Amari Harvey, safety, 5'10", 171 pounds, 4-star out of Florida State University School. So stole him out of the backyard of FSU. That's a big one right there. I think Florida was our biggest competition for him. That is one that's going to be really big because we'll be losing. We've already lost a lot of depth in the defensive backfield, but having that one come in, I think is going to be good. What are your thoughts on Amari Harvey? What do you think about him? I think there needs to be more transparency with the recruiting process, with the whole recruiting process in college football now as a whole. So, Slim, tell me what you think. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, when you that's a big, and I'm not saying you're incorrect, but that's a big statement. What does transparency mean to you? Because if you're going to ask for that, you got to be able to tell them exactly what you mean by that. And I'm interested in that too. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Are we good with 4, or do we go to 5 and 6 running backs? So I think it's right now Tank, Shivers, Barrett would be Jarquez Hunter. I feel like I'm missing another one that's still there as well. So that should be 5 potentially running backs that are here right now. That's pretty good. Obviously, Tank would probably leave after this year, I bet. Oh, no, wait. He would have to wait another year to leave. So Tank will be around in theory. Unless he transfers or something like that or gets hurt. So that would probably take place. We'd probably need at least one more to be sitting pretty good. Harvey, I agree. I'm excited about Harvey as well. Having a good defensive backfield is something that we're really going to need to continue to shore up there. We created quite a pipeline for ourselves with Noah Igbenogany. Did y'all see the comment from Mr. Heisman? From Alabama, saying that the best defensive back he faced in college football was Noah Igbenogany. I miss saying his name. I really do. So the grass wasn't as green in Florida? Apparently not. He has the potential to be our best signing stud. I think the 3 that we've talked about so far have the highest ceilings, at least in terms of perception. Because, there's the dark horses that everybody doesn't think too much of. But I think in terms of clear talent, highest ceilings, those are the 3 right there. Running back out of Mississippi has signed a letter of intent according to AU. Let's see. Eddie, yeah, we're glad to have you here too, my friend. We haven't been going too long, about 20 minutes or so. Brian Harson's out here tweeting Greek philosophers quotes. I love this guy. He's definitely taking a different approach. And sometimes, a little refreshing new stuff is good to have. So I do like that. Just 4 running backs. So here, everybody, let's name them real quick and make sure we have them. Shivers, Tank, Jarquez. Are we counting him in that? And then the one I'm not thinking of. So let's correct that if that's wrong. Najee Harris was 2-2 against Auburn. Very true. Very true. Okay, that's a great point. Let me move on to this one. Darius has brought up Landon King, and he's the next one I have on this list. Landon King, another Texas athlete. So let me just remind you guys of this, folks, for a second here. I know that everybody was ready to move on from Gus and his staff and stuff, but the thing that I was most excited about Chad Morris was his connections to Texas, and you can see that in this class because they pulled in Demetrius Davis. They pulled in Landon King from Humble, Texas, from Estascosido high school, I guess. 6'5", 220 pounds. He's rated as a 3-star. So Auburn only has 3 4-stars, according to 24/7. But Landon could have been one of those that probably was ranked a little bit low. We'll find out. Everybody loves a good tight end, so he could be getting slept on, according to what Darius said here. Give Tyler Fromm the ball. I just want to see it happen simply so that we can mess with Jake Fromm, because then all the announcers will talk about it. Did you know that his brother played at Georgia? Devin, Tank, Shivers, Jarquez. There we go. 4 total. So that's a pretty good backfield right there. Right. I think you would probably want one more for depth issues, because if you think about it, Tank and Shivers are going to be run. Tank will obviously be run the most, but Shivers is going to see a lot of time. So after that point, there's going to be a bit of a drop off. So Devin's got some opportunities to prove that we made the wrong choice by shifting him to defensive back, and then Jarquez has an opportunity to prove that he's ready. Got to take advantage of the transfer portal from this point on. Oklahoma, Florida did. Can't sit around for miracles to happen. That's dead. That's dead from this point. Produce. Yeah, so I think, again, I think the transfer portal, when utilized properly, is a good thing. But I view it as a Band-Aid, not as a solution. So I would just be very careful with your dependence upon the transfer portal. And it will probably make, obviously, Oklahoma, like you said, and Florida will make it work for them. But I'm a long-term stability type of person. Transfers do not fix that. They put a Band-Aid on, which they can very quickly get ripped off. You need solutions in the recruiting cycle, and it's going to take patience. We have a lot of tight end depth now. It'll be interesting to see how J.J. Pegues fits into the offense. So if there's one big disappointment from the Chad Morris and Gus Malzahn offense not being here anymore is, what happens with J.J. or Pigsasis, as I call him, because he's oddly graceful. They'll find a role for him. You don't waste talent like that and not use it. Shivers can take the heads off of players. Literally, he can. He is, and I know listen to me when I say this. Most of you are going to roll your eyes, but every time that guy gets the ball and runs, I yell, "Shivers me timbers!" I know it's Shivers, but it just, I don't know, makes me happy to say that. Yep, Eddie, we did talk about that a little earlier. Very excited to have the two of those back. Probably a bench. What do you think about Shivers? Like I just said, I love the dude. He's one of my favorite running backs that we've had in quite some time. I tend to drift towards more of the underdog type of guys, so he's definitely a case like that. I love a good bowling ball running back too, like a Darren Sproles and stuff. I know Darren really wasn't as stout, but that's kind of what the picture I have in my mind for him. When is Grant Calcaterra able to play? Now, War Productions, I believe he chose to go to Oklahoma, somewhere else. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, he went to SMU. Yeah, so he's not going to be part of that. Here's the thing: if everybody believes that the big solution for Auburn's offense was tight ends, you've got plenty of opportunities to use them now. Landon King has been added to the mix. All right, let's keep scrolling down here. Offensive guard Gardner Lango from Ocala, Florida. If any of these names stick out to you, your thoughts on them, keep sharing them. Don't have a lot of thoughts on some of these ones I'm going to mention. Kamal Hayden, cornerback from Independence Community College in Kansas. Here's one, Marquise Robinson from Milton in Milton, Florida. That Florida pipeline, so it's going to go nicely with Lee Hunter. He's a little bit heavier than Lee at 300 pounds, but a little bit shorter. So there'll be a nice 1-2 combo probably coming up together. And you see this happen a lot. You'll see, I'm trying to think of who was there. Monty and Carl Lawson. You saw Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown. There's been several of those type of combos, but these are two defensive tackles. Nice to shore up the middle of that defensive line. Very excited about Marquise Robinson being here. Is the O-line still going to be a problem? Yes, Harrison. It is still going to be a problem. I was just in a text conversation with one of our contributors here, and we were talking about, obviously, the elephant in the room is we need to fix the offensive line. But we're going to have to be patient. Gus Malzahn's, and this is me as the ultimate Gus Malzahn advocate. Most of you have been here know this. I was singing his praises, and I do not think he should have been fired. However, his biggest problem and his biggest mistake was hiring Herb Hand. And it's what ultimately, years later, got him fired because Herb Hand wrecked the offensive line, and it was not able to recover. Had that been not such a bad situation, Gus Malzahn would still be here. I would put I shouldn't say that on the air. I was going to say put money on it and put a certain amount of money. I would put a lot on that. But yes, it is still going to be a problem, but hopefully we're going to see that problem be lessened and lessened over time. I'm going to give them a pass on year 1. Year 2, we need to see some improvement. To get some better O-line in the future, yeah. Colby Smith, 6'8". We talked about him a lot on the last stream we were breaking down signing day. 6'8", 315 pounds. He a lot of upside. I want to be cautious with that one. I don't know why. I am excited about him. It was a nice grab for Coach Harsin. Out of nowhere, he could be a dark horse, but we'll see. What position will make the biggest improvement this year? I know a lot of y'all don't want to hear it, but I think it's going to be Bo Nix. Well, no. Let me take that back because that's dependent upon the offensive line. Biggest improvement. I'm going to say linebackers. And they weren't bad this year, but I'm going to say linebackers has the biggest improvement. Spooky thinks it's going to be 2 to 3 years to fix the O-line. Probably not wrong, sir. Okay, running back, Darius says, is going to be his area that improves the most. Potentially, but it's hard to improve on Tank. All right, let me keep going down the list here. Tavarish Dawson, Lehigh Senior High from Florida, from Lehigh Acres, an athlete. And anybody got any clues on where this guy? You know, I'm always confused by athletes. They're typically going to be wide receivers or defensive backs. Anybody got a leaning on where he's going to be? He's 5'10", 175 pounds. So if he puts some weight on, that'd be a decent cornerback. So maybe that's where he goes. Devin Mark says the receivers will be improved. I don't know. That's the one that I think is going to struggle the most, to be honest with you. Who would be your starting secondary? Roger McCreary, obviously, right there. I have to go back and look at the depth chart to see all of it there, but Roger McCreary is definitely up there. If Christian Tutt were still here, or if he's who knows if he's still here at this point. I'd say he'd be in there. But Roger McCreary definitely. I'd have to go look at that stuff. What we'll do is we kind of, because there's going to be some slower days when we need to do a live stream. We'll break down some depth. That'll be fun to do together. I know, Scotty says, I know Gus Malzahn didn't do one-on-ones in practice, and will they go back to one-on-one in practice? So, Scotty, how do you know that? Do you have, and when I say no, when someone says I know, my expectation means they witnessed it not just one time, but they witnessed it several, and they didn't just hear it from someone. And I would caution you that if you know, if saying I know means I heard it from a good source, sometimes they can kind of embellish things because they already have an opinion in not an agenda, but an opinion they're trying to drive about a particular thing. So did Gus Malzahn not do one-on-ones a lot? I would bet so. Not just because I think there's a high probability of that happening, not because I have any evidence to think of that why. But did he do it all the time? Definitely not. Definitely not. And because that, you won't see Big Bo improvement. Hurts a little bit to say that. So let me take what you said, because I kind of agree with that. I do think you're still going to see Bo improve, though, because the focus will shift to taking what we have with the offensive line and really making it work for the running back's sake, but also for Bo's sake. And they're going to put Bo in a better position this year, probably. So I do think Bo will improve, just not to what people want him to be in terms of to get them off his back. Or get them off his back. Let me back way up here. Dawson is my number 2 dark horse. He's playing wide receiver. Okay, so he'll be a shorter wide receiver. So, but if he can, he's a good possession guy. It's not going to really matter if he doesn't have the height for it. Do you think Andrew Leota, the guy transferring down from Northwestern, will start next year at an in spot since Big Cat is gone? Probably looks like it, right? There's a lot of room for that type of stuff, and a senior-laden guy with a couple, talented defensive tackles coming in. Probably going to be utilizing them a lot. You'll need some senior leadership there, or some upperclassmen leadership. The guy's already got a degree, and he's got 3 years of eligibility left. That's just crazy. So, yes, I do think he'll be a starter next year. I wish we could clone Ryan Davis and have him as the slot guy forever. He was fun to watch and always made the first man miss. The crazy thing about that is we heard legends about Pat Sullivan and Terry Beasley and the dynamic duo that they were. But we didn't really get to see it. You saw that with Ryan Davis and Jarrett Stidham. And think how underappreciated they are. Think about what the Auburn offense would have been without them. I like what the current staff was able to do with a short time to make a splash. The stars don't matter in this group. Harsin and staff will develop these players to be really good. Hopefully so. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee, but hopefully so. So what do you consider a splash, Eddie, in this class? Because I don't really think there is a splash by what most people think of it. But I also think there's some things to be very excited about with this as well. $91.9 million on a facility has been approved. Yes, it has. Thankfully. So, yeah, I think Tyrone coming back is going to be good to give Lee Hunter and Marquise Robinson some time to get used to playing some more, because they're probably going to see a lot of playing time, especially Lee. So it'll be a nice seniority situation there for them to learn from and play behind for a little bit. I'm starting to think Coach Harsin will be better for Auburn long-term than Gus. Auburn needs consistency. Well, you had consistency if you kept Gus. But here's what I will say to that, not to go down that rabbit hole, because I know some of you get tired of that. But it's easy to think that right now. Get back to me in 4 years, and we'll see what you think. You may be right. But I don't know, and it depends on which area you're talking about in terms of, is Auburn better long term? When most people are making that statement, they're thinking of winning, and a certain amount of winning. But winning isn't everything. Would Coach Harsin have a Florida-like offense, Emory Jones, Kyle Trask, where Demetrius Davis runs and Bo Nix passes, and vice versa? Potentially. I'm not saying you're not going to see him play at all next year. I would prefer that he not play, because I would rather him redshirt, learn, build up his body a little bit, and be ready for year 2, potentially Bo Nix's last year, even though he'll still have another year of eligibility after that if he wants it. Because I think we only have 2 more years left of Bo Nix. But, yeah, I would much rather him redshirt and build up and be ready for the future. Our D-line could be really good. Wooden, Hunter, Leota, Walker, others could be great as well. It's got a lot of upside to it, and that's why I didn't name it as the most improved, because I think it was still decent, but I think it will get better. Do you think we will have an 1,000-yard running back and wide receiver? No, at wide receiver, running back, yes. That's a pretty much given at this point. I mean, Tank got like 500 yards without an offensive line by himself, so I think he'll do fine. And that's a great point, that Bo is as good as a runner, and I think that's going to be the thing that sets him apart in terms of in that. Because here's the thing, Demetrius Davis, from what I understand, I think he's listed as a pro. From what I've seen, he's a dual threat quarterback. So the thing that would probably separate him from Bo Nix doesn't separate him as much, because Bo's pretty mobile. He's a gunslinger. So they're pretty much kind of the same quarterback, and Bo's got the seniority and the experience on him. So I think that's why I would always lean to that. Now, when Bo gets on the field, he has to produce. And if he doesn't, then you lose your spot. So yeah, but that's what I think on that. All right, let's keep moving down the list. By the way, I see a lot of you new faces here. If you haven't, smash that like button if you're enjoying the content today. And subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell. We started moving up again on subscribers. We shot up into the 800s and then just stalled out. It was the craziest thing. I've never seen a rise that quick and a stall like in the same thing. It was the funniest thing ever. But we'd love to get to 1,000. I told you guys that if we get to 900, I'll start doing a few little better things, like a call-in option and stuff like that. You may think I'm crazy, but Bo Nix sort of reminds me of Brett Favre. Just needs to be refined. Not a bad analysis. Neil. I can get on board with that thinking. I don't think... So here's the thing. In the Bo Nix discussion, and there are wide opinions about it, I don't think anybody would disagree that Bo needs to improve. I mean, I've said that, but I am going to defend the kid because he's the best option that we have, even with Demetrius Davis here. And I think he has the most upside currently as things stands right now. So, yeah, I do think a Brett Favre analysis where you need to be refined a little bit, give him some time. It's not bad. Not bad. Davis is shorter, and actually Bo has around the same 40-yard dash time, so very comparable here. Do you really want to see Demetrius get his own package next year just because it's really exciting to watch? I do. So, yeah, it's exciting to watch, but so this is, and I know not everybody has to think like me, Slim, but I'm a longevity, stability type of minded person. Yes, it would be cool to see that next year, but in a year where we know that we're basically probably not going to be winning a national championship, it's happened before on a crazy scenario. I'm not saying it couldn't happen again. Why burn that guy's eligibility? Why get him in a position where he can get hurt if he's a future quarterback for us? Why put him in that scenario just so that we can have fun watching him? I'm a longevity person. That's the way I think about it. What position group do you see being the most productive group of this team this year? More running backs. Even with a bad offensive line, running backs. It's going to be the most productive. I think most fans look at stars as a splash, but my definition of a splash is signing guys who fit the system and fill the needs. Fair point. Fair point. What college did Favre go to? Just wondering. Southern Miss. We played him, I believe. Leo is the Leota guy a good pickup? His numbers last year at Northwestern seemed very below average. It's a good pickup for depth and senior leadership. Simply for that. Not that I'm advocating it because I don't think it really usually works, but would a dual quarterback system work with two dual threat quarterbacks? Potentially, especially if they have a propensity to get hurt because they take a few more risks. I mean, that's what Florida did with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. Now, I would say that both Chris Leak and Tim Tebow aren't your truest sense of a dual threat quarterback, but they were still dual threat versions. So, yes, I think it could work. I don't want it to, though. You'd like to get him experience for what it's like being on an SEC field. Yeah, look, I think there are two different. There's obviously tons of angles you can take on any different topic, and I think you bring up a great point there as well. Here's what's gonna. I know this is a cop out, but I'm just gonna trust Coach Harsin. If Coach Harsin feels like he needs the experience and get out there early, let's do it. If not, I'm going to be very happy to see him sit back for the future. Favre beat Auburn when he was at Southern Miss. If I'm not mistaken, Favre wanted to play at Auburn, but Dye said no thanks. Yeah. Thankfully, you're not defined by your mistakes. You're defined by what you do after those mistakes. All right. Let me keep moving right along here, and we'll wrap up here with our social media folks in just a second. Here's some other names. We talked about Hal Presley already. A lot of people excited about him. Maybe a future Seth Williams type player. Tobeki Okolai, Lincoln College Prep. Strong defensive end, strong side defensive end. 6'5", 250 pounds. We talked about Colby, Juwan Gaston. We talked about Ian Matthews, defensive tackle. Jarquez Hunter. There he is. If I had just looked down the list, he had showed up in there. So Jarquez Hunter. Joko Willis, inside linebacker. Armani Diamond, cornerback. Caden Bridges. That was another name. That was another flip for us. Good one to get. And then we have already talked about Andrew Leota. So all in all, that is, I'm trying to make sure I have all the numbers here correctly. 17 signees. Your national rank is now 27, I guess, with the Jarquez Hunter guy and someone else, I think. And then your, let me move this out of the way. SEC rank I'm trying to get. SEC rank is 10th. So all things considered, and you can mention anything you want to about some of the other guys, but I figured we talked about most of the bigger topics there. What do you think? You can grade the recruiting class, but here's what I really, really want to know. Who is your favorite pickup out of this recruiting class? Who's your favorite one? Go. What player will step up big time this year, in your opinion? It's probably going to be my pick for my favorite recruit, too. Colby, the offensive tackle, because we got to start somewhere. Colby Smith, got to start somewhere. So you share that similar question. Who's your favorite pickup in the chat window? All right, we're going to say goodbye to the social media folks. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We'll be here on YouTube for a few more minutes. While you're sharing some of that, let me do a couple of things for you guys as we normally do here. Let me bring up the support. If you haven't already, please do check out our podcast network. I'm going to put a couple links in here for you to check out. First of all is our Patreon campaign where you can sign up as little as $1 a month. Thank you for so many of you that continue to do that. Helps support the content that we do here on this channel, but our podcast network as well. I'm also going to try to put this link in here as well. Last time it didn't work, but this is for, let me see if it works this time. It did work. All right, so what I put in there is not our traditional podcast link. It is for our Auburn Roots series alone, and we just released a new one today. You don't want to miss this one. This is my friend Jen. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name. Rosenhauser. But it is a great story. She's one of the first ones to got connected with Dee Ford, the British lady, who's become the ultimate Auburn fan. So go to that link and check that out. You can find it on the main link we usually share as well, but it's available there if you haven't. If you haven't, please do make sure you smash that like button if you enjoyed the content today. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Dawson at wide receiver. Joko Willis. Lee Hunter. So a couple of good picks there. I think Colby Smith, though, is going to be my favorite just because of the need to fix the offensive line. Let's see. Hard-hitting defensive back. Forgot the name, so that would be probably who you're talking about. I'm forgetting his name, too, now that you said that. But that would be your pick. Dylan Brooks, looming. We will probably break into the top 25 if we get him. I would think so, but don't get your hopes up. But remember, we said we were hoping that would be a success if Coach Harsin got into the top 25. So I would be all for that if that happens. Let's see. If your red shirt can't, you play up to 4 games and still red shirt for that year. Great point, Chris. So now we fixed the discussion that Slim and I were having about whether to play him or not. Play him. Only for 4 games, though. Just don't get him hurt. 8-5 seasons isn't a consistency that as Auburn fans and players want, plain and simple. I understand what you're saying, but I think you're thinking of too small about it. And using that when you take just a simple phrase, an 8-5 season is not something that we want. Well, nobody wants an 8-5 season. Everybody wants an undefeated season. That's just why you play the game. But there's reality too. And you have to look at what's going on during that time where you're having 8-5 seasons consistently, as you were saying. So without going into that long drawn out conversation again, just probably don't want to do that today. But you should think about that more than just outside of 8-5. Why is it 8-5? And not just blame the coaches and stuff like that, but what else is going on in college football? There's a reason. The fact that Auburn was consistently winning 8 or 9 games, we'll say 8 games just to be fair, because I know people are going to get mad about that. No, it was 8 games. With what they had to compete against in the SEC and the SEC West is outstanding. And I don't think people are willing to look at it that way. Think there's any possibility for uniform changes? First of all, let me go ahead and give you guys this. I don't have the link prepared. In fact, let me see if it'll let me do it in here right now. I do want to send you guys somewhere after we're done here, and I hope that you'll go check it out. Obviously, some of our links as well. But I promised, he's my partner in crime. He's been on, he's been, I think this is the link here. I'm just typing it in for you. auburnuniforms.com. Clint Richardson does great work there archiving some of the aesthetic history of Auburn. You definitely want to go check his stuff out. He's talked a little bit about that. My hope is not. I'm a nostalgia freak. But hey, you know, he's the coach. He can decide what he wants to do. I just hope next year we get at least a top 15 class, which I think we will. I think so as well. Auburn sells itself. These COVID-19 restrictions will hopefully be less and less as time goes on, eliminating that factor from it as well. You'll definitely have, hopefully, if they have some early success, that will kind of drive the already momentum that's going to be building towards Auburn. So I would say it's not out of the realm of possibility for Auburn to be a top 10 team next year in recruiting. But top 15, I think, should be the goal. The DB that came from Illinois or somewhere last year that played in the bowl game. Forgot his name. You're forgetting all kinds of names. Is he still at Auburn? And if so, will he be a significant player? Well, I have no clue who you're talking about, so you'll have to help me on that one. We are not seriously saying you are comparing one of the best quarterbacks ever to Bo Nix. Are you serious? Yeah, we were making that comparison, and I think it's a very fair one. And to be fair, I didn't make it. I just agreed with it. But you might have a very unfair opinion of Bo Nix. And I'm not trying to call you out, skinny boy, but sometimes we like to operate in hyperbole because it gets the best reaction. Maybe an occasional special uniform, just not crazy. I agree. No Oregon crap, guys. None of that, please. Tavarish Dawson is my favorite recruit. There's been a lot of hype on this stream for Dawson. Elite speed for a wide receiver and can return punts. We definitely need a speed guy because the fastest man in football is gone. Colby Smith, because I think if he is successful, it'll open up a door for future offensive line. Perfect example there, Eddie. Great comment on that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I'd love to see this be the beginning of something special for the offensive line because that is what will fix the Auburn struggles that we've been having. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Smash that like button on the way out. Hope you'll be here for another live stream. We'll probably do a few of these over the next couple of days. I won't guarantee we'll do one tomorrow, maybe. But the next time we get together, barring some big news, I'd like maybe to take a look at the future of recruiting and what 2022 already looks like. And so y'all come ready to talk about some of that stuff. Like if you got your eyes on a couple of players and some people that you're really focused on for 2022, because I think there's a lot to look forward to coming up this week. So War Eagle to you all. Thank you for being here today, and we really appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.